Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we are steadily squeezing bigger pictures out of literatures. I am Adrian Fort, and we are here for another video. This is a video that is going to take part in 3 separate playlists here on the channel. First, of course, the short story review playlist. Second, we're going story by story through the best American short stories of 2017 as edited by Meg Wolitzer. And third, this is part of the Dirty 30 videos in 30 days. Because we passed 3,000 subscribers here on Strip Cover Lit. It's a sort of celebration. We're celebrating with more literature, more stories, more bigger pictures. But today we are here in particular to speak about God's Work by Kevin Canty in the Best American Short Stories of 2017 as it appeared in The New Yorker. This was in The New Yorker. So bear that in mind, if you will. This was in The New Yorker. So, well, first off, I would like to apologize if you can hear all of that. You might also be able to see that I am quite red-eyed at the moment. I'm not getting a lot of sleep. It is currently 7 in the morning. I got off work at 5:30, so trying to get some things done, but I should be asleep right now. And because it's 7 in the morning and I live literally 2 ass cracks away from a McDonald's, it's just noise right now. Plus, there's a thunderstorm going on, so I don't know if you can hear any of those things. But it's all happening right outside, and I'm not going to sleep until probably 10, wake up at 2. Again, we'll see. Anyway, not to put that on you, we're here to celebrate. God's Work by Kevin Canty. So, what happened? Sander, a young man about to enter his junior year in high school, is spending summer trailing his mother as they hoof it door to door, peddling religion. Most people say to piss off, but one particularly salty atheist type invites them in. There's a bit of ruckus. Turns out the father calls his daughter in. The daughter is a girl that Sander knows from school. The mother-son tandem give their pitch and get thrown out of the house, that is, but the young woman ends up showing up to the cult meetings. Eventually, Sander and the girl, Clara, end up taking walks together, even into the woods. Also, Sander wants to sex up, and Clara has a snake tattoo. Can you hear that? Some jackass that has a super loud car. You know why you need a loud car? You need a loud car because you have a quiet bedroom. That's why. Anyhow, they don't sex up though, but Clara continues to show up at the cult meetings until one day her father, aka the comic book guy from The Simpsons, bursts in and drags her away, and they never see each other again. Sad emoji. So, 3 good things from God's Work by Kevin Canty. God's Work. It was God's work to find 3 good things to say about this story. But 1, Sander feels much younger than his age, and he should. He seems to be the shut-in type. He seems to be living alone with his mother, and they are part of a religious cult. Seemingly a cult. Maybe it's not a cult, I don't know. I'm not sure it really gets specific enough in the story. But a lot of times, people in those situations are sort of cloistered in their own world. And they don't really develop, right? A young man, in fact, the first little bit in the story, I thought he was like 4 years old, not 16, 17-ish. So he feels much younger than his age, and he should. That is a good thing. 2, it reads quick. There are no major hiccups in this story, and though it is not surprising as a story, neither is it predictable. And we'll get a little bit more into that in a moment, I believe. And 3, this short story appears so early in this collection, story number 3, that you get the feeling we simply have to be on the upswing from this point. surely there are no depths to which this collection can fall from here. 3 bad things. 1, this is boring. 2, everyone is cardboard. And 3, this short story's inclusion in the Best American Short Stories 2017 gives me serious doubts about the literacy rates in America, and probably means that I'm already not buying next year's collection. Quotes. So, let me say that I take the format for a show very seriously. I take the formats for reviews very seriously. For both of us. For myself, because I think that it gives me some type of framework from which to write, while still allowing a framework from which to observe, perhaps, while still allowing room to think freely about the piece. And the literary analysis part really gives me space to go off on any tangents that I really want to cover. But from a viewer perspective, I think that something like a format for a show such as this, such as a review, is fruitful because, for many reasons, because, so, the 3 good things, 3 bad things. If I saw someone's show and they promised 3 good things and 3 bad things for everything they read, and I saw that they had read Fight Club, I'd want to know what those 3 bad things were. Good luck, fucker. You've got some proving to do. From the quotes perspective, if you read The Old Man and the Sea, I want to see what quotes you picked. If I see that you read any given short story, novel, poem, I want to know what you picked, because I want to know if those things match mine, or maybe I missed something. From the literary analysis perspective, obviously that's my thing. I would love to see what people really dig out of stories. Ratings are always interesting, I think, just to see how someone truly feels about a piece, and recommendations. So if I recommended something off of this that you had also read, and I had also done a review on it, I think that it would be interesting. Well, for me, flip the perspectives. If I saw that you recommended something and you had done a review on it, and I had already read that piece, I would fall down that rabbit hole. I've got no quotes here. There's simply nothing, and I didn't even know it at first. I read the short story, I did some marking up, I came back to, so I've started putting reviews on one sheet. That way I don't go off on too many tangents, I don't make things too long. I've got the script without having a script, because I am very, very guilty of, okay, I found a good way to word that. Let me write it down. And then I will sit here and read it right off of the paper. I did all that marking. I went back at the end of the story. I've got no quotes. I read it again. I've got no quotes. There is not a single quotable moment in this short story. Also, if you can hear that slamming, the thunderstorm, my door has about 1/4 of an inch of give. And it'll just all night. Boom, 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 boom. Anyway. Literary analysis. To give this short story any type of literary analysis would be to erect a monument to a man that never lived. There's nothing here. Nothing here that really exists. There's some stuff planted in it. There's some obvious stuff. All of the stuff that you could extract from the piece is, I mean, you could get it from the so what happened part of this review. There's a snake tattoo. They go into the woods. It's a man following his mother leaving his mother, trying to leave his mother for the hot new thing. Like, it just, there's, I don't really care. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you back to that 3 bad things. And we're going to go into depth as to why this short story really sucks. And number 1 was, it's boring, right? That's a sin. It's a sin against your reader. Kurt Vonnegut said something like, I'm not going to quote him directly. But he said something to the effect of pity the reader. Pity the reader because the reader has to do all the heavy lifting. You've done the fun stuff. So pity the reader. This author takes no pity upon the reader. Doors kind of bugged the hell out of me. But author takes no pity upon the reader. So, and one thing I've noticed about myself as a critic, because I had a blog where I did short stories and novels and movies even, and I realized that the more time in those reviews that I spend on someone else's work can be directly correlated to how much I hated the piece that I am writing about. So, Stephen King describes 3 levels of horror in his book Danse Macabre, and they are as such. The base level is the gross out. The second level is horror, and the third level, the granddaddy of them all, is terror. The gross out is the shock fest slasher type stuff with blood and guts and gore, yada yada yada. Horror is identifying the bad thing and realizing, I want no piece of that. Let me run the other direction. And terror is weaponizing our reader's mind against himself. And if I am not mistaken, the examples he uses in the passage are the gross out level, the lights go out, and something splatters against your arm. That's gross out. Horror is the lights go out, something grabs your arm and yanks you. You know what direction it's from, I want to go the other way. Terror, the lights go out, and there's whispering. And there's some movement, but you don't know which direction that whispering or movement is coming from, so you freeze. That's sort of the 3 levels of it, and I believe that fiction works on a similar scale. The first level is fun or intrigue. Fun in that, like George Saunders is fun. I would say that, I don't know, who's William Faulkner is not fun, but he is intriguing. You want to know what's going on. George Saunders, you can't stop reading because you're having fun while you're sitting there. So you have to entertain. And just like the first level of horror, the gross out, you don't have to really do much thinking to be intrigued. You don't really have to do much thinking to have fun. So having fun or intrigue in the piece is sort of the cheap stuff. The second level of fiction is fiction. Sort of like the second level of horror is horror. Like that middle level of horror, you're recognizing the story as real. Not true, but real. Believable. The world in which we are is working as the world needs to work. That's sort of the second level of fiction. Things are going well. The third level of fiction is literature, where you weaponize the reader against herself. She begins to recognize herself in the text and bringing the lessons to her world, the same way that terror makes her check in the closet before she goes to sleep. You're bringing those lessons into the real world, out of the text. This story works on none of those levels. So there are some writers who skip the first 2 and jump straight to literary. So there's things for your mind to really delve into. Dostoevsky. His stories aren't fun. The ones I've read, there's not even really a lot of intrigue. The stories themselves might not really work. Like, the whole time you're reading, you're like, this person's going to stand out in the real world, right? Like, you maybe pick a better subject here. And the craft itself isn't necessarily the greatest, but it's literary. You can definitely see that there are things in these stories that you need to be taking home with you. So it jumps straight to that level. There are other writers. A lot of times the genres are faulted for never getting to the fiction or the literary levels. The story clicks on 0 levels. It's just not working. It's not intriguing. It's not fun. The world is, who cares? And literary, just because you put it in there doesn't make it literature. Just because you're trying so hard to do something literary doesn't make it literary. So that second thing that we had listed in bad things, everyone is cardboard. So when you think of a cardboard character, a lot of times what it ends up being is it's a stereotype. The religious zealot who belongs to a cult, for example, which is sort of what's going on here. So we'll take, just to not really get into anything too heavy, we'll take something that is a positive stereotype. Asians are good at math. I'm a firm believer in that you can have the characters in your story be whatever they want, be whatever you want, and do whatever they do. And that's fine. If you want to have an Asian in your story that is good at math, hey baby, nobody cares. You shouldn't care. There's Asians in the world that are good at math, right? Those people exist. But if the Asian in your piece is good at math and that's all they do, there's a problem. If the Asian in your piece is remembered solely for being good at math, is there just to be good at math? What are you doing? You haven't created a character. You haven't made anything real. If the Asian is there to be good at math and he's a magician or something, I don't know. But at least there's something going on. You're adding dimensions there. Which brings up the difference between from surprise and unpredictability. This story is not predictable. From the first couple pages, I couldn't have told you exactly where it was going, but it's not. Neither is it surprising, right? There is nothing going on here that shatters where the story took place. The story begins and ends in essentially the same place. The characters are the same. And maybe that's the point of your story, is that nobody changes. But if it is, there has to be a reason for them not to. And there really isn't. Right? And I hate to even necessitate it by saying there has to be a reason here. But it's just like employing stereotypes. And it's just like being unpredictable but not surprising. Those things can all be done, but when you've got all of them jiving at the same time in the same place, you're probably writing a bad story. 3, what was the third one here? Oh, right. The United States might not, America, it's American. America might not be particularly literate anymore. Maybe no one can read, and that's how things like this pass through. And this reminds me, so my master's program that I got into, I was so proud that I got in, right? I got accepted to a master's program. Then I get there. And I find out that, I went to Lindenwood. I'll just throw it out there. It was essentially open admissions, it seemed. There were some people in those classes. There's a difference between not writing a full sentence for creative purposes and not understanding that your sentence is not a real sentence. I probably had classes. I probably met 6 people in that master's program that did not know the difference between a real sentence and a non-real sentence. Which sucked. And this story reminds me of a classmate that was above that, but refused to walk at his full height. Another person who was just sure that he was the second coming of old Dusty Dostoevsky. And completely incapable of taking criticism. And I never even went hard on his stuff. I thought his stuff was acceptable, was passable, but I took it as my duty to write on these pieces, to actually critique them. A, because it's going to make me better as a writer, and I want to earn my money that I'm spending on class. But also, if you're spending all that money, wouldn't you want to take something from the class? I guess some people showed up just to have their butt kissed and be told that they were the next great thing, which wasn't going to happen for me. And he got so salty that my final piece in the class, it was like a 12-page story, size 12, double-spaced. It was within the parameters of what we were supposed to write. In fact, I think I had 3 pages I could have written more than that. But on page 6, he wrote a little shitty note saying, "This is where I stopped. I wasn't going to spend any more time on this." What I'm saying is, I from reading the story, and I can't make judgments on this Kevin Canty guy because I've never met him. I know nothing about him. But that's how the story reads. It's as if it was written by the pretentious and touchy type who is goddamn convinced that he pisses profundity, and would be livid to see a critical review such as this. And I think that is absolutely the wrong way to be. And that's how you end up writing stories this shitty. Because you wrote them, you pinned them with the stick that was lodged up your ass. That's how you write something this shitty. Moving along, rating 40 out of 100. I grant you no literary merit, and may God have mercy on your soul. And recommendation, if you want to read about quasi-religiosity ending up in sheep-like behavior and the horror of the coal, read The Lottery by Shirley Jackson. That's all I've got this time, and I hope to see you for the next review. If you liked this, I hope that you leave a like, subscribe if you have not already, and as always, there is a link to my Patreon to be found in the description below. What is this motherfucker doing? And he has to be right out there with his engine revving for 3 straight minutes now. I hope I never understand people.